It is my great privilege to introduce to you this evening's commencement speaker, Reverend Ralph Blamenberg. He has served the church in almost countless ways, but one of the most impressive services to me is that for 31 years he has been the pastor of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Seymour, Indiana. Emmanuel now has 3,500 members. And I know from experience that you cannot serve a large congregation that long unless you are a wise, patient, spiritual, visionary, faithful pastor. I do believe that there are some people present from Emmanuel. You raise your hands. They came to see if this is really true, Ralph. He's been married to Jan for 37 years. They have 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and 1 coming. God bless that. It is with high esteem that I introduce to you this year's commencement speaker, the Reverend Ralph Blamenberg.
President Meyer and Diane, thank you for those kind remarks. And if anybody thinks I know what's going on in my congregation, I had no idea these people were going to be here today. And it certainly is a blessing for me to see among them close friends, trusted colleagues, people with whom I've worked for years, including members of our parish staff that make that experience so wonderful. So certainly thank you for making the time to be here. But now I certainly do have to, I will be held accountable for what I do tonight. I'd also like to address members of the faculty that honored me. I appreciate your honor. Fellow regents with whom it's a privilege to be able to serve this institution. Fellow honorees with whom it's an honor to share the podium today. The administration and staff that work so hard to keep this place going. And especially the parents, the spouses, the children, and the soon-to-be graduates. It was almost 35 years ago to the day that I sat where you graduates sit, and that tree was a lot smaller. My wife, Jan, sat where you families sit, and on her lap was Justin, who had just turned 2, who's sitting beside her tonight, now at 37. He surprised me, too. And our daughters, Jennifer and Janine, who are sitting a little further back because Jennifer has a 2-year-old like Justin was back at that time and is probably not sure he wants to listen to everything that Pa has to say. I'd also like to take a moment to honor them and probably embarrass them by just asking Jan to stand and my kids to stand, please, too, if you would. I'd like to thank you for putting me through seminary. And for supporting me throughout all of those years. And while I'm at it, I'd like also to take a moment to thank you parents and grandparents and spouses that have entrusted these students to Concordia Seminary. You have prayed for them, in some cases paid for them, and you've always supported them. Please stand, parents and family and spouses, and let us and let them recognize you. When Dr. Meyer offered the invitation to speak tonight, I was at the same time honored and humbled. It is a great honor to be able to speak in this place to you in the seminary that I love and to which I personally am deeply indebted. But I will not take myself too seriously. I cannot honestly remember one word from the commencement address I heard 35 years ago here. I don't even remember who gave it when I was in your gowns, and I am certain it will not take you 35 years to forget what you heard tonight. That really is okay. What matters is that you students have drunk deeply from the vast learning and insight of this world-class faculty. You've learned from each other in class, over lunch, at chapel, at IMs, at Profsenstein, and all of those community gatherings. You've learned from field education and vicarage, and you will need all of that wisdom and then some for what is next for you. Commencement, after all, is about beginning, not ending. Commencement is moving forward to what is next for you. I think of it as the launching of a rocket from the pad where it is relatively safe to now go to its mission. You are fueled up and ready. The countdown is nearly down to 1. And some of you have been mentally in another place since call day. And that's good. But as you commence, remember who you are and why you are going. Many schools have commencements where grads set out for honorable vocations, teaching and business, engineering and medicine and law, good vocations needed by the world. In comparison, the number commencing here this evening is hardly enough to make a ripple in the world. In fact, you have spent many years and many thousands of dollars to be trained to know and do something that is regarded by many as a waste of time and money. Foolishness, they would say. People speak all of the time about post-Christian America that seems to have no appetite for traditional biblical Christianity. Of course, I couldn't disagree anymore. That's why Jan and I gladly support this seminary's work with our prayers, with our gifts, and with our time. And we encourage others to do the same. For those small in number, we believe you will have a disproportionately large impact on God's world. I think of you as the church's version of what the military call special ops. Special ops, highly trained individuals put in the most dangerous of situations, always outnumbered, but always expected to succeed. You've heard of them: Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Army Rangers. 15 years ago, HBO produced a miniseries called Band of Brothers. How many of you have seen it or some of it? Now, some of you are excused because you were too young to watch it back then. But the Band of Brothers were the first airborne troops, the special ops of World War II. Younger than you, they went through grueling training with seemingly heartless drill sergeants that would make your toughest prof seem like your best friend. They were pushed to exhaustion, and as a reward for surviving all of it, their commencement was jumping from a plane behind enemy lines. Now you are a band of brothers, you men entering the pastoral ministry, and you deaconess candidates, a band of sisters. Basic is over. It has not been a cakewalk for you. You have been drilled Greek and Hebrew and Bible and doctrine. You have been tested and prodded, and for good reason. In the military, drill sergeants push recruits so they will survive the much harsher reality of combat. And here, your professors and mentors have pushed you hard because we want you and your churches to survive the much tougher and real threats that are part of following Jesus. Now, in calling you special ops, I don't want you to see yourself with paint on your face and exotic weapons under your arm. Rather, in calling you special ops, I mean special optimists. You will see the world in a hopeful, optimistic way that many do not. You see it not with rose-colored lenses that say everything is good. On the contrary, you will say that everyone is a sinner. But you also see that with God all things are possible. You will see with hopeful eyes, because it is God's world, and God is at work to reclaim it and redeem it. You will see with hopeful eyes the kid in confirmation class that looks like he could care less what you're saying. The girl in youth group that is turned away from everything good her parents have taught her and you have taught. You will see with eyes of hope the couple in turmoil, the member who has dropped out, the baby you baptize, the alligator who likes nothing you do. You don't give up on them because Jesus doesn't give up on them. Now, your special optimism may not be supported by the daily news or even your own experience. You may even find a lack of hope in churches that are in decline, lacking for money, volunteers, respect, and vision. One author wrote recently that it's becoming increasingly common for pastors and churches to lower our expectations so we don't risk disappointment. That kind of reminds me of a funny television commercial about the settlers, the ones who settle for something other than DirecTV. That's what settlers do. We settle, they say. I laugh when I see it, but it's not funny if it's what we do in the church. Jesus did not tell his disciples to settle for a small place in Galilee or Judea. He gave them the commission to make disciples of all the world. They were to follow him. And Jesus saw the world with eyes of hope. His mission took more sacrifice and courage than any Navy SEALs. Now, Jesus did not jump from a plane behind enemy lines. He came as a baby, delivered in Bethlehem by a virgin mother. He infiltrated a world bound by sin and freed it from the inside. He saw sinners not as enemy that God hates, but the very one he gave his life for. He showed power over sin and death and unbelief that guts the human soul. And along the way, Jesus trained a handful of disciples in hand-to-hand combat against the devil. They were a lot like you and me. Those disciples at some times were thick-headed and thin-skinned. Thick-headed because they didn't seem to get it. Thin-skinned because at the first sign of danger, they ran. But all of that changed when Jesus rose from death and went to Satan's headquarters and declared him defeated. That's who you represent. You are being sent in the name of a living, mighty, loving Jesus. I'll warn you, thick heads and thin skins still exist, even in our beloved church. We can be slow to understand the power of Christ. We seek weapons that are more glamorous than the ones God gives, His Word and baptism and bread and wine, which have the power to change our lives. We can be worried more about protecting our turf than advancing Christ's kingdom. But Jesus is still Jesus, and His Word is still God's power to save. The tools available for you graduates make your job more humanly possible than ever. But Special Ops know that victory is never about technology. It's about courage, determination, and faithfulness to the task, following Christ the leader and using the tools He's given you. The theme of this school year has impressed upon all of us that the Word of God is living and active. St. Paul, other place, describes the Word as the sword of the Spirit with which we battle the powers of darkness, and that we will only stand with the full armor of God. Those words for all Christians are especially appropriate for you, the class of 2016. God's Spirit has been working for more years than you know to form and shape you. Your parents remember when God took you, a hopeless sinner, and made you a saint of God in baptism. And that Spirit is still equipping you. What God did for you, God would do for others through you. You are our special ops, the force multipliers in the church. You will train, equip, support, and be on the front lines with your people. You will be their medic, binding their wounds, visiting and comforting. You will be the ones that stir them up when they get tired and feed them the strength and power of God's own word. And you need to get that mission right, because the lives and souls of many depend upon it. Responding to Christ's call and through the power of the Holy Spirit, Concordia Seminary is about to unleash on the world this class. Small in number, you will have a disproportionate impact, for you bring hope as you bring Jesus and his power to bear on the world. Many of you will soon join the band of brothers already in the field. Whether old veterans like me or those just getting started, have one another's back. Know the difference between the enemy we fight and the ally beside us. Honor those who have gone before you, and keep your eyes on Jesus, who's keeping his eyes on you. Congratulations, commencing class of 2016. In the words of Joshua, be strong and courageous, do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God goes with you wherever you go. Commence boldly in his name, and may God bless you as he blesses the world through you.